So what I would like to do with you today, I have 30 minutes to actually achieve my goal. But what I'd like to do is actually share with you some of the key lessons that I have learned in practice, and also which I have helped to introduce also in a number of DASA products. So yes, I will be touching upon a few DASA products, but most of all, it is also my views, which I've learned actually from daily practice. And the key message that I'd like to bring across here today is that instead of actually focusing on differences and stimulating polarization, which I see a lot in our industry, I would suggest to have a look at, the successful integration between products and projects, and how would that look like? But also, what are, possible pitfalls that you can encounter and how can you deal with them? So I'd like to touch upon a few of those. And in the end, actually, let's see what the key success factors would be for a successful marriage between these two. Now, a little bit about myself. So my name is Dave van der Herpen. I'm Dutch. I live in the Netherlands. I work in multiple countries, but usually in the Netherlands. That's also where most of my experience comes from. I have been helping organizations in the past 10 to 20 years in their transformations, usually about Agile and DevOps transformations. But in all cases, I've been helping them and those organizations to become a better version of themselves. And at this point in time, I, for instance, work at a large academic hospital in the Netherlands. And I help them to implement portfolio management, product management, and service management within an agile context, which is quite interesting, especially also in the healthcare and in a hospital situation. On the other hand, I'm also at this point in time engaged in a large energy organization in the Nordics, and I help them with the business DevOps transformation by creating a product mindset, a product focused mindset, and a way of organizing their teams using team topologies and several other methods. In addition, I've been attached to DASA for quite some years now, and I've helped them to actually author a number of recent publications, such as portfolio management, product management, and experience management. And I will be touching upon a number of those during the next 25, 26 minutes. So having that said, my my title already suggests that I think that project and product could be quite a good couple. So also in this case, let's not focus too much on polarization. Let's focus a bit more on how can they create a good couple and what would constitute a good marriage. And first, I would say a good marriage between project and product relies a lot on dealing in the right way with complexity. The second one is to make sure that you have a good and unified view on value. And the third one is that you have a very, I would almost say, a very rigid focus on delivery and flow. I will touch upon those in the next few minutes. First one is dealing with complexity. And what is really crucial in dealing with complexity is that we consider and that we realize that one size does not fit all. So I've been in too many organizations where someone has come in and someone has said, okay, everything needs to be agile, everything needs to be safe, everything needs to be Scrum, everything needs to be this or that or whatever. But we don't realize that, whatever we have as tools and constructs, they have their own context and their own value. And what I always use in those cases is a sense-making model. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. I hope you are. If not, please make sure that you actually dive into this, because for me, this has been one of the key eye-openers for the last, let's say, 10 to 15 years, which is the Cynefin framework. And the Cynefin framework is a sense-making model, and it really helps you to actually see where are we in which type of context is my team or is my project or is my problem to be solved actually situated in? And based on the context, based on what you see around you, what is the right problem-solving approach here? And this means that, for instance, if your context is more of a clear one, which means that most of the things that you need to do are really straightforward, pretty standardized, it does not make sense to have an approach to actually deal with those really simple, clear problems, to have an approach which is more focused on actually something like exploration or something like that, right? So make sure that for the type of problems that you have to deal with, that you find the right construct and the right problem-solving approach to fix it. Same goes on the right top. You say, for instance, complicated. It means that you need to actually really start, gathering some knowledge or sharing knowledge or getting the right information in place, getting the right training or whatever. And that makes you able to actually deal with those problems in that area. And that's where, for instance, roadmaps, plans really work well, because you do an analysis, and then based on the analysis, you gather the right people around you, and you actually deal with the complicated problem as you go. For instance, building a house is really a complicated problem. You need to know how to build it. You need to know how to construct it, that it doesn't fall apart, etc. But in the end, it is a complicated issue. And then we move more and more to complex areas. And in a complex domain, it means that you do not have a lot of value in actually using best practices, because there's so many unknowns happening in your domain. So many things are uncertain, like what your actual customer wants, how you want to build it, how you want to create something, etc. That you need what we call an exploratory approach. So you need to do experiments, and based on the validation of those experiments, you move ahead and you learn and you go ahead, etc. And this actually means that, yes, projects, for instance, they can have a really good and sustainable way to actually deal with a lot of these issues. But most cases, projects focus on the right domains. Yes, you can actually use projects to deal with complex domains, but there's specific ways to deal with complex domains because it's really exploratory. It's not something you can define up front. It's not something that you actually build a plan for and roll it out. So dealing with projects in a complex domain is quite different than dealing with those in the right, more the order domain. So this is something you really need to be aware of. By the way, the fact that more and more of the environments that we see are in the complex domains, more and more issues we see, the dynamic environments around those digital transformations, even dealing with the transformation itself, dealing with people, usually is a complex issue. So more and more problems we want to solve are complex in nature. It means that we need to be aware what kind of problem approaches fit those best, right? So use the right one and do not use one size to try to fit all. The second key element, key ingredient for actually bundling and combining and joining project and product is to have a joint idea of value. And Nader already touched upon value itself. For me, this is a key definition of value, because value is always a hypothesis. You do not know until you actually delivered something into production to the users, to the ones that actually have to deal with your products or services or whatsoever in production. Until then, it's only a hypothesis. So you will only be able to actually validate the value and the benefits until it has been delivered. Until then, it will always remain a hypothesis. And that means that in your approach, you need to have a way to actually make sure that you continuously explore the things that you deliver and whether they deliver the right value or not. And that begins at the beginning, that you need to identify what are the things that we want to have in the product that create value out of this. And then you start actually delivering it into them. And If we dive into product management as we know it, it has actually 4 key risks that we identify and that we want to, work and that we continuously want to explore and actually in the full product lifecycle. And that means that we have product managers, could be product owners or whatever, or product leaders or whatever. They are the ones that actually should determine what should be valuable items in our product, and also whether they are viable for the business, yes or no. And then it's up to the team, whether you have an agile team or a project team or whatsoever, that needs to determine whether it can be built, yes or no, and how much time it will take and if it's feasible, right? And of course, you also have designers who need to think about the usability as well. So these are a number of elements and potential risks, because upfront, you do not know if some idea that you have, if it's valuable, if it's usable, feasible, or viable. So you need to discover this. You need to explore this together. And as long as your as long as your projects actually enable this continuous exploration of those risks, then you are, joining those forces. And the third one is delivery and flow. Also in product management, we actually think that flow is very key. It's very fundamental. Now, one of the key books we use in product management is The Principles of Product Development Flow from Reinertsen. It's a very essential book. I would really suggest to read it. And delivery and flow can also be visualized by using this young lady here that we see crossing the street. This is actually a square in the Netherlands, and it's one of the squares that we have been, implementing in the past years, using what we called the open space concept, and a shared space concept. And at the beginning, actually, this was one of the squares in Holland with a lot of accidents, also with deadly consequences. And what they did, they removed all of the procedures, they removed all of the traffic lights and traffic signs, etc. And it became one of the safest squares in Holland. But moreover, what's even more important, well, not more important than safety, of course, but evenly important, is that it also enhanced flow. It enhanced flow on the square. Not if you look at individual situations. So it may be the case that if you see this woman crossing the road, even in Holland, it would be considered rude to run over her. But the thing is, if you focus on, for instance, this bus that you see crossing here, and it needs to wait for a few seconds before the lady has been crossing the road, that may mean that this bus has a bit lower flow than if the bus would have had a green light and would just have crossed the road anyway. But if you combine all of the different movements on the space, it would have created a better flow for the entire system. And this is crucial in product management, is that we focus on system flow. We don't focus on the flow of individual items, individual projects, individual stories you build, individual the things you build, whatever. You focus on the total. And there are 3 key strategies that we use in order to create a better system flow. One is to limit your work in progress, which means fewer projects, fewer features, fewer stories. Whatever you're using as a construct, do it with fewer at the same time, because it will enhance your flow in the system. Same goes for batch size. If you have a very large project or a very large epic or very large feature or whatever you're using, it takes longer before you actually finish it. So the smaller entities you use to get through your system, the better it is. The higher your flow will be. And last but not least, the less queues you have, the better your flow will be. So if you have one team, and in that one team you have 6 different people, and all of those people don't share their knowledge and their experience and their tasks, you will have 6 different queues within one team. So actually, you have 6 teams. So that means that focusing on reducing the number of queues will actually make sure that you have a better flow in the end. These are fundamental strategies in product management. If you have projects that enable these strategies as well, that means that you're on the right track. So that means that we have identified a number of actually overlapping elements which you could think about in projects, which are really fundamental in product management. Now, why, do we even address product management? Why has it become quite, an important topic in our whole, not only IT, but in businesses worldwide? It has a lot to do with, for instance, the lack of customer focus that we've seen in a lot of organizations. So we want to become customer focused, customer oriented, relentless focus on users and customers, knowing what they want, knowing what their experience should be, etc. Also, there's been a lot of development in the product management area because we want to create autonomous teams. And if you want to create autonomous teams, you need to have a clear vision what you're heading towards. And based on that vision, the teams will find their own way to create the right strategies, to create the right, product increments in order to move towards that vision. And that is something that really, is fundamental to the whole rise of product management. So that's also the key, foundation of DASA product management, is that we deal with the inevitable complexity, we embrace a focus on value, and we enable continuous flow. I already talked a bit about DASA. I've been attached to DASA for quite some years. DASA is a global industry body, and we actually help to develop organizations. We help them in their transformation to becoming a high-performance digital organization. And we do that by providing knowledge, talent, guidance products, which are, originally mostly related to the Agile and DevOps area. But if you look at the entire portfolio, it's about portfolio management, product management, experience management, a lot of, really key capabilities for your organization. And we have structured this by actually focusing on the main transformation themes. We have identified 6. So yes, it is a lot about actually creating digital organizations. It's also about having a strong IT capability. But in the end, it's also about creating the right digital leaders. It's also about creating autonomous teams. It's also about creating the right landscape, IT landscape, tech landscape, in order to sustain and to actually enable dynamic products. And the third one is the one I'd like to dive into a bit, because that's also the one that I've been working on quite extensively. And also where product management and portfolio and project management actually really come together. And this is about wiring the enterprise for flow and value maximization. So here on the right, you see the portfolio we have as DASA. There's quite a number of products we already have on there. And you see a few rings. So you see, more or less the key middle ring, which is about the certification programs we have. It's about DASA leadership, DASA coaching, etc. But also on the right, with the yellow circle or the orange circle around it, those are key products that actually deal with value maximization and looking at this from an enterprise perspective. So we have been, investing a lot in creating product management products and value boxes. And we also created those around portfolio management and experience management. So those 3 actually are at the heart of creating a more value-driven organization. Here you see those 3 in a sort of a Venn diagram. By the way, I love Venn diagrams because they also actually explicitly touch upon the relationships and not just the differences. So creating digital organizations which focus on value maximization. It is focused on actually creating a good portfolio of investments and product services and initiatives. It is about creating the right experience for your users and products. And it is actually about having a solid and dynamic product management approach as well. And those 3 together actually ensure that you create the right value. And linking it to also, for instance, project management, portfolio management is also can also be visualized as a Venn diagram, because in dealing with portfolios, you also deal with managing projects or other initiatives. And so whether you're in an agile organization using SAFe and you're using epics or features or whatever, or you're dealing with projects and programs, whatever you're using as a construct to actually create change initiatives, in all cases, you want to bring those all together to create value and benefits for your business, which is what portfolio management indeed is all about, what Nader already discussed as well. So portfolio management is one key element with a lot of things around it. The same goes for experience management, because that is also about how can we create the ultimate experience for the users of our products and services. It's not only about making sure that you create a good business case at the beginning, it's also about tracking the benefits while you're actually delivering those products and services to your customers and users in the end. So if they're actually using them, using those new functionalities that you've given them, do we know if they can extract the right value from them? Yes or no? It's essential to measure this. If you don't know this, if you don't measure this, what was the use of the project or the product initiative in the first place? And in the end, of course, product management, that's about actually making sure that the entire product life cycle is being managed in the right way, which is about product development. It's about actually creating new products, about innovating. It's also about operating your products and services. So it's also about making sure that, you know, if you have your users using your products, do they get the right quality here? Are they able to ask questions about it to a service desk, and are then the incidents routed in the right way? So it's a lot about actually combining all of these elements instead of focusing on the individual differences. Make love, not war. And this is also to actually highlight the essence of product management, not being in a silo, but actually collaborating with all of the other capabilities in your organization. If you use projects as a container for work, make sure that product and project management are continuously aligned, and together they actually deal with the joint stakeholders. If you have a portfolio of initiatives, make sure that your products actually contribute to your portfolio vision and goals. If you have services that you deliver to your end users or customers, make sure that those services are integrated in your product life cycles and vice versa. Right? So it's all about collaboration. And that holistic aspect, that fundamental view on collaboration, is reflected in the product management principles that we have identified at DASA. And these are actually really simple. So it's about creating an environment where you enable value-driven decision-making. It's about focusing relentlessly on flow throughout your entire system. Whether you use automation or new ways of working for this, focus on system flow. And last but not least, it's about continuous improvement as well, in a lot of different ways. And these principles are reflected in the certification program that we have. So we have a 2-day certification program for product management, which delves into all of the facets. How do I do product management, and how do I actually do this in a digital organization? How can I make optimal use of it? And the same goes for the value box that we created. So on the one hand, we have a certification program, 2 days. You get knowledge and experience from an experienced trainer. On the other hand, you also can use the elements in our what we call value box, which you can apply in your transformation. So these are templates, these are workshops, these are support tools, these are guidance paper, which we have on the shelf, which you can just use in order to enhance and accelerate your transformation and to help adopt product management in your organization as well. So concluding, how can we get this couple of project and product really to succeed? Well, first, my key message would be use key principles and use them for synergy and not for polarization. If we look at principles, maybe from P3 Express, maybe from the Agile Manifesto, maybe from SAFe, maybe from XP, maybe from DASA's DevOps 6 DevOps principles, or the 3 key product management principles I just shown, in all cases, they boil down to the same things. So there's an underlying wire that connects all of these. Focus on that underlying wire. Do not focus too much on the differences. And the underlying wire, on the right bottom, you see value-driven decision-making, focus on flow, and validated learning. You see all these three, you see them reflected in all of those other methodologies and frameworks as well. So focus on, what combines us. Now, is this by definition a perfect couple, or do we need some marriage counseling? I would say some marriage counseling may be needed here, because in practice, if we talk about optimizing value, I still see a lot of trouble that we find in actually looking product teams the way that we should look at product teams. So if you have product teams, which are the fundament to a digital organization, and we want to actually make optimal use of them, we should define problems and bring them to the teams to solve them. We should not give them predefined roadmaps, predefined plans, and predefined actions. So these are 6 actions, please do this. That is not what product teams thrive on. It's not what they're meant for. So give them problems to solve, especially if you're dealing with complex issues, complex things you want to solve, because then you want the team to start exploring. You want them to actually start using hypotheses, using experiments to work their way towards finding the right experience for the customer. And also measuring them to see if the iterations and increments that they're doing, if they actually deliver the right value and experience and benefits. Second one, where we also need some marriage counseling, I would say, is projects usually are focused on, I say usually, traditionally have been focusing on bringing people to the work. So we define a construct, which could be a project, and we assign people to the project. If you do this, it's quite different than actually defining chunks of work and bringing them to the long-lasting teams and bringing problems to those teams that they need to solve themselves. Right? So there, in order to, how do we deal with this capacity thing, is something that I see in a lot of organizations as a key element to solve. So if we use projects in such a way that we still bring work to the people, so we actually use the teams as much as possible and do not extract people at random from those teams, that is actually where projects and products can actually meet. And last but not least, a change like I just talked about, so a change towards product management, but also about joining product and project as much as possible. We all should be aware that we all need to change. And if we look around us, we may see other people change, but everyone that is involved in creating digital enterprises and high-performance organizations need to change themselves, whether you're a manager, whether you're a project manager, program manager, product manager, a scrum master, director, whatever you are, in all cases, be aware of fake change. And the Germans have created a fantastic word for this, for fake change, which is Eisenbahnscheinbewegung. And that is the feeling, so it's like railway fake movement. And it means that you're on a train station and you're standing still and the train next to you starts moving. So you have the feeling that you're moving yourself. This is what the Germans call Eisenbahnscheinbewegung. And it's fake change. So be aware that if you want your organization to change and really adopt the right mindset and combine, the best of all worlds, maybe you yourself need to change as well. So that's something I'd like to actually end with.